Hi, I'm Meredith Blackwell, and I'm at IMC 12 in Maastricht, Netherlands, and it is the 13th of August 2024. And I'm going to talk with Sara, that I know as Landvik. So, why don't you start telling us where you were born and what kind of family life you had? Did they know about mushrooms and fungi, or is that something you came about later?
Yeah, I would say later. I was born in Stockholm, but my parents divorced, so we moved north to my stepfather. He grew up in Lapland, in the far north of Sweden. So that's where I grew up, even though we moved to many different places. I wouldn't say that we had any kind of academic people in the family as such. There was some interest in eating mushrooms, so we picked some chanterelles, some bolets.
Was there any reindeer moss?
Many reindeers, yeah, and moose and so on. Yes,
But
absolutely.
was there the lichen?
Yeah, absolutely, much, very much. I mean, it was mainly in the forest that we lived in out in the countryside.
Neat.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm not a big city girl at all. But I think it was one of my teachers when I lived in a place called Abisko, close to Kiruna, that some people know. He showed us some of the puffballs, and he said that when they are immature, you can eat them. And that, I think, was the first thing that gave me some interest in mycology. Otherwise, I didn't care much for it. But I started to study biology at the university. And yeah, we had a lot of courses, botany, and I thought it was really, really nice with all the flowers and plants, and I loved the mosses, and then we came into lichens, and then we turned into pure mycology. And then I started to think, they are little, brown, and ugly. So I didn't feel interested in that topic. But then I thought, nothing can be as bad as not also having something good. So I thought, what could be good about that group? And then I thought, maybe they're interesting. And from that moment, something switched, and then I became interested and for a while really obsessed in why are they so unknown, and they're so mysterious, and they're known mainly from, at least in my world, from more of the old stories and the trolls and the fairy tales more.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so then you went on then after undergraduate school to grad school?
Yes, then I started my biology studies in Linköping, but then after 2 years I moved up to Umeå, and that's where I started with the mycology. And then my coming supervisor, he was a taxonomist, Ove
Tell us
Eriksson.
a little bit about.
Yes, Ove Eriksson, he was, he's known for System Ascomycetum and so on, and his professor, his supervisor, was Professor Nunfelt. So he came from a long history of Swedish mycology branch. He had an idea that maybe this new technology with PCR would be something that could solve some of his problems. So he actually got money to buy the first PCR machine in Umeå at the university. And so I started because he needed someone to start. And that's how it started.
Okay, and you were looking, what were you looking at? I seem to remember when I saw some of your early data that you had yeasts that were quite separate, and one was Saccharomyces yeast, but the other one was something that we know now is not that closely related to Saccharomyces.
Yes, well, actually, the first problem that we wanted to solve, the scientific problem, of course, there were many practical problems. How do you set up a PCR laboratory? And how do you sequence a PCR project and all of that? Those practical problems, that was one thing. But the first scientific project that we started looking into, that was actually to study a fungus called Neolecta vitellina, which Ove had found in Umeå and close to Umeå. And he knew that that one was an interesting species to start with because it had been morphologically placed into sometimes in Petzisalis and sometimes into Hellochaelis. And so it had a little bit of characteristics from both groups. So he thought this would be a perfect little problem to see, does it belong to that or to that group? And as in so many things in science, you have a hypothesis, you say, now we're going to see, is this A or B? It often turns out to be Y, X, something completely
Yeah, it was
different.
more like Z.
Exactly, or yeah, X.
Very far from
Yeah,
either of the
yeah.
other two.
Yes, and yeah, so that was intriguing, of course. And I remember some of the first conferences that I went to when I presented the data. People kindly took me to the side and asked, did you read the sequences twice? Yes, probably 20 times. And could it have been a yeast contamination on top of this? Because the morphology of this one, it's like a club-shaped fungus. And it is a big fruiting body, I mean several centimeters. But it seemed to belong to not the Saccharomyces yeast, as you said, but more to the Schistosaccharomyces type of yeast. And Tephryna and those very, now today are known as very basal ascomycete groups. So of course it seemed very weird, but the data supported it. Later I sequenced another gene, and later of course it was confirmed also by others. So it was a very good start.
But it's very exciting at the time.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
And I had been hoping that it could be used as a model organism, because if you have something that is a multicellular organism that has a very, very basal origin, it could have been such a good model organism to study polarization of evolution simply. But it's not culturable, or at least I haven't managed to cultivate it.
Yeah.
Others have tried it a lot too, but it doesn't
I
want
even
to.
tried it once.
You have to? Where did you find it?
I think I got some from Don Feaster.
Yeah. So that was probably
Because in
Neolecta irregularis.
Massachusetts, yeah.
Yeah.
So then, after you finished your degree, what happened?
Well, then I think I was a little bit tired of just doing the manual sequencing. Most of that was so much just washing plates, and yeah, I also wanted to look into, is this really true? Because I think one thing that I learned from the older mycologists, because it was so new with the PCR molecular thing, so we got so absorbed by that, everyone that started with that, and it also took all our time mainly. But the elder mycologists, they always told me, remember the fungus. Look at the fungus and also keep that in mind, that it's not just a sequence. I think that was a very good thing. Mm-hmm. And I actually wanted to find morphological support for these findings. So I decided to, instead of doing more molecular work and phylogenetic work like that, I decided to do scanning electron microscopy work. And I had during my PhD time, I also had studies within Pezaisalis. And much of that was also together with Trond Schumacher and his group in Oslo. And because I know that Neolecta grow in the forest nearby Oslo, and they had an electron microscopy course for students, then I moved to Oslo, and I had a year where I found Neolecta and did the scanning electron microscopy studies of it. And then the idea was that I should also do transmission electron microscopy studies of it, but they didn't have experience from fungal material for that. So I had met Steve Moss from Portsmouth at a conference in Sheffield a year earlier, and he said if I would be interested in coming to his lab, he would be happy to help with that. But of course, since Neolecta has to be, since it cannot be cultured, I had to find the fresh fruiting bodies, so I smuggled them to England. But it was a problem because during that summer, it was a very, very warm Oslo summer, a wonderful one, but very warm, and I know that Neolecta seemed to be sensitive to too much drought. So I thought maybe I need to water the places where it grows, so that it will make fruiting bodies.
So you knew the exact sites?
Yes. And found some more also when I was walking around there. But just to be sure, because I was dependent on having the material with me to England. So there was a wonderful summer. 3 times a week I walked to that place in the forest, and I had to bathe in the lakes on the way to the place. And yes, I watered it, and it did grow. I don't know, maybe it was just my imagination, but I thought it was more at that place than at any other places. So maybe it helped, maybe it didn't. So then I had 1 year in Portsmouth with Steve Moss.
And did you work on other things with Steve? Because he worked on trichomycetes and
Yeah, Kixalales and very basic
very
funny
beautiful
things.
fungi that he
Yes.
worked on.
Yes.
But you worked on the Neolecta.
I worked on the Neolecta with him, yes. So we didn't do other studies but together, but of course I saw some of his studies and met some of his other students and so on. So. But then I had 1 more year in my postdoc period, and then I went to Mary Burby in Vancouver. Then going a little bit back again to molecular data, then we studied some other genes and looked into some intron events and so on. And while I was in Vancouver, I had a mail that Ove, my former supervisor, sent. He got a request from someone at Novo Nordisk company in Denmark. And she just sent out a mail to the mycologists that she knew of in the world. So Ove was one of them. And it said, there's a position in this company in Denmark. So is someone knowing of anyone that would be interested? And to me, that was no... I cannot sell my soul to like business things, industrial science. No. But after some weeks, I decided I better look at it at least. And I read about it and I said, well, this is really interesting. They are looking for enzymes in fungi and that should then be used in the world to do good things for the world. So I thought, maybe that's just what I want to do. So I applied for it and I was lucky to get it. So now I have been in Denmark for 24 and a half years.
Okay, so it must have been sometime after you went to Novo Nordisk that you were married.
Yes.
And had a son.
And a daughter.
And a daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was shocked to find out that your son is now 20 years old.
Yes.
Because I think probably the last time I saw you was when you were in Vancouver with Mary.
Yeah.
But,
yes.
But anyway, we've had some good times. You were in Baton Rouge one time, and we went to Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
Yes, we went to Mardi Gras.
With Joey Spatafora in the lab.
Did. Yeah.
So you meet all sorts of people and do all sorts of things when you're studying mycology.
Yeah, and it's been great.
Yeah.
And it's always so nice to be back in the more academic world and talk to people it's
So what kind of work are you doing now? Are you able to do research or you?
Yes, I'm in the R&D of now. Well, our it was called Novozymes for a long time.
Yeah.
That was split off from Novo Nordisk, but then recently we merged with another company in Denmark. So now we're called Novonesis.
Oh.
And I used to say that my role is to be a fungal and enzyme hunter, and that includes to find new diversity of both the microbes and enzymes for all of the industrial applications that we have. So it's in the very beginning of the flow of work.
Well, it's been very interesting to talk to you and to see you after so many years. It's been really nice, Sara. So thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, and same to you.
Okay.